Good evening. As you listen to the sound of my voice, you might begin to notice your breath deepening, slowing. Allow me to be your gentle guide tonight, effortlessly leading you through the peaceful landscapes of the past. There is nothing to accomplish here, nothing to strive for. The only goal is rest, and even that is not a goal but a gentle allowing. And as your body begins to soften, as your mind begins to quiet, we will let a story born from earth and fire. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. Your presence here is what truly matters most. And if you feel so inclined, you can let me know in the comments where in the world you are, and what time it is for you now. It's a quiet way of knowing we are all settling down for the night together in this space, even though we are far apart. And so find that gentle darkness in your room, perhaps with a soft blanket pulled a little closer as we begin our slow drift into tonight's tale. The year is 220 BCE, or thereabouts. Dates are a little fuzzy for someone like you. Your world is not measured in years of an empire, but in seasons of harvest in the cycles of the moon. You are a young artisan, and your hands, even when clean, feel like they still hold the memory of cool, wet clay. Your family has been shaping pots and tiles in this small village, nestled by a tributary of the Wei River, for as long as anyone can remember. Life has a rhythm. The turning of the potter's wheel is the turning of the world. The sun warms the clay, the river gives it life, and the fire gives it strength. But that rhythm has been disturbed. For the last few years, everything has changed. The old kingdoms, with their familiar lords and their petty, predictable wars, are gone. They have all been swallowed by one man, the King of Qin, who now calls himself the first emperor. And his new order is everywhere. You see it in the stern faces of the officials who pass through your village, their robes stark and unfamiliar. You see it in the new coins that feel awkward in your palm, replacing the shell and spade money of your ancestors. They say that even the width of every cart axle in the entire land from the northern deserts to the southern jungles must now be exactly the same, a standard set by the emperor. It's an idea so vast, so controlling, it makes your head feel a little fuzzy. An entire world forced into alignment. This grand unification has brought a strange kind of peace. The wars have stopped, but it's a heavy peace, a silence filled with unspoken rules. And with it has come a new kind of movement. The emperor is building things. Immense things. To the north, they say he is connecting old walls into one great wall, a dragon of stone and earth. He is digging canals that defy mountains. These projects require people, millions of them. And so, the roads are full, but with laborers, engineers, and artisans from every corner of the now unified states, all being moved around like pieces on a game board. And these travelers bring whispers. You hear them at the village well and from the merchants who stop for the night. They speak of the capital's Yin-Yang, a city bursting at the seams with ambition. But the most persistent rumors, the ones spoken in the lowest voices, are about a project just east of the capital, near a mountain called Bletchley. No one is quite sure what it is. Some say it is a new palace. Others say it is a park for the emperor's pleasure. But the most common story is that it is his tomb. Not just tomb, a city for the dead, built on a scale that dwarfs any city for the living. They say the project has been going on for years, even before he became emperor, and now its pace is frantic. It consumes everything: wood, stone, bronze, and most of all, people. Use it at your wheel, the clay cool and smooth beneath your palms. You press and a shape begins to rise. A simple bowl. You have made 10,000 just like it, but as your hands work, your mind wanders. You try to imagine what they are building out there, near that mountain. The sheer amount of resources, the number of hands. Historians would one day debate whether the common people saw this as a glorious, unifying endeavor or the crushing folly of a tyrant. It is simply a vast, hungry mystery, a void on the horizon that is pulling everything towards it. You listen to the hum of your wheel and the quiet whisper of the wind coming from the east, and you have a strange, certain feeling that the wind is carrying a message, a summons, and that your hands, which have only ever known the simple grace of village pottery, will soon be asked to shape something else entirely. The feeling lingers for weeks, a quiet hum of anticipation beneath the daily dust of your work. The seasons begin to turn. The leaves on the ginkgo tree in the village square shift from a deep green to a brilliant, shocking yellow. And then, one afternoon, the hum becomes a reality. It arrives not with a gust of wind, but with the clatter of hooves and the jingle of bronze harnesses. To men on horseback, wearing the dark, severe robes of imperial officials, right, imperial officials. They do not look like the tax collectors or the census takers. They carry themselves with an air of urgent importance that makes the whole village fall silent. They dismount, their leather boots kicking up little puffs of dust. One unrolls a scroll of bamboo slips, its ties neat and official. The other, a man with a stern, weathered face, scans the small crowd of villagers that has gathered, his eyes seeming to miss nothing. Your father, the master potter of the village, steps forward, bowing his head. You stand just behind him, your heart suddenly beating a little faster. You try not to meet the official's gaze, focusing instead on the intricate bronze buckle of his belt. It's shaped like a crouching tiger, a small, perfect, deadly thing. The official with the scroll begins to read. His voice is flat, impersonal, as if HES reading a list of supplies. He speaks of the mandate of heaven, the glory of the emperor, and the critical importance of a project of eternal significance. The words are grand and hollow, like a drum being beaten far away. Then his tone shifts, becoming more specific. The project requires artisans of the highest skill. Masons, carpenters, bronzesmiths, durable forms. His eyes, which had been fixed on the scroll, now lift. They pass over the nervous faces of the other villagers and land, with unnerving precision, first on your father, and then on you. HES seen your hands. Everyone in the village knows your work. While your father is the master of the traditional forms, you have a reputation for experimentation. You were the one who figured out how to build those larger than normal funeral urns, the ones that didn't crack in the kiln. You were the one who started mixing different types of sand into the clay to make stronger bricks for the new well. You have a feel for the material, ANAC. And somehow, in the vast, bureaucratic machine of this new empire, that small local reputation has been noted, recorded on a bamboo slip somewhere, and delivered to this man. By imperial decree, the official announces, his voice leaving no room for discussion. The workshop of this village will provide two of its best. One master, one apprentice. He looks directly at your father, and then at you. There is no question. It's not a request. It's a statement of fact, as simple and unchangeable as the rising sun. You are being called. Your mother lets out a small, quiet gasp, which she quickly stifles. Your father's back, which had been slightly bowed, straightens. He shows no emotion, a skill learned over a lifetime of dealing with authority. He simply nods. "We are honored to serve His Imperial Majesty," he says, his voice steady. You feel a strange mix of emotions. There's fear, of course. The fear of the unknown, of being taken from the only home you've ever had. But beneath the fear, there's a spark of something else. A flicker of excitement, of pride. Your knack, your quiet experiments in the dusty workshop have been recognized. You are needed. You are being summoned to the heart of the mystery. The academic term for this kind of mass mobilization of labor is corvée, a system of state-in-paid work. Historians would later calculate that over 700,000 individuals work unscripted to build the emperor's mausoleum complex. But for you, in this moment, the cold, hard fact of history feels deeply personal. It's the sound of your name being called. The official rolls up his scroll. "You will be provided for," he says, his tone softening just a fraction. "Your families will be compensated with grain. Gather your tools and what you will need for a journey. A cart will be here in 3 days' time." He doesn't say how long you will be gone. The omission hangs in the air, heavier than any word. It could be a lifetime. You look at your hands, the ones you thought were only good for making bowls and pots. They are about to become imperial instruments. You are no longer just a village potter. You are a servant of the first emperor, about to embark on a journey to the edge of the capital, to a place shrouded in secrecy, to work on a project you still cannot begin to imagine. The 3 days pass in a blur of quiet activity and unspoken farewells. Your mother carefully packs you a bundle with a change of clothes, a small whetstone for your tools, and a pouch of dried herbs from her garden, a familiar scent of home meant to ward off sickness and bad spirits. Your father, ever the pragmatist, spends his time selecting the tools you will take. He chooses not the newest or the shiniest, but the ones whose wooden handles have been worn smooth by years of use, the ones that feel like extensions of your own hands. He gives you his favorite scraping rib, a piece of bamboo polished to a perfect curve. "Let the tool do the work," he says, his standard piece of advice, but his voice is thick with an emotion he rarely shows. On the 3rd morning, the cart arrives as promised. It's a simple, sturdy wagon drawn by 2 placid-looking oxen, and it's already carrying 2 other men, a stonemason from a village upstream and a quiet, older man who you learn is a master carpenter. You and your father climb aboard, finding a space among the bundles and tool chests. The whole village is there to see you off. There are no loud goodbyes, just a sea of familiar faces. Their expressions a mixture of pride, worry, and a little bit of awe. As the cart lurches forward, its wooden wheels groaning, you look back at your home, at the kiln your grandfather built, at the yellowing ginkgo tree. It all seems to shrink so quickly, becoming a small, fragile picture that you try to burn into your memory. The journey itself becomes a lesson in the new reality of the empire. You are traveling east, following the river on roads that are wider and straighter than any you have ever seen. These are the emperor's new imperial highways. They say they are all a standard width, 50 paces across, and radiate out from the capital like the spokes of a wheel. It's an incredible feat of engineering, designed to move armies and supplies quickly. For you, it means the journey is less bumpy than you expected, but also more monotonous. The landscape rolls by in a slow, steady rhythm, punctuated by the plodding of the oxen and the squeak of the axle. You are not alone on these roads. You are part of a constant, slow-moving river of humanity, all flowing in the same direction. You see other carts filled with conscripted workers, their faces set with the same mix of apprehension and resolve as your own. You see long lines of laborers on foot, chained together at the ankle, their movements clumsy and rhythmic. These are the convicts and the disgraced scholars, a fact later historians would confirm, who were sentenced to the hardest labor on the emperor's projects. You see convoys of wagons laden with supplies, enormous logs from the distant forests of Shu, strange colored minerals from the southern mountains, and endless sacks of grain. The sheer logistics of it all are mind-boggling. It's as if the entire empire has been tilted, and everything loose is sliding towards the capital. At night, you stop at designated travelers' rests, simple compounds that provide water, a place to camp, and a measure of security. Here, you share a fire with people from all over the known world. You meet a man from the coastal kingdom of Qi who speaks with a strange, lilting accent. He tells you of a sea so vast you cannot see the other side. You meet a weary horse breeder from the northern steppes who smells of leather and open spaces. He complains about the humidity but marvels at the richness of the soil. It's a strange and disorienting experience. For your entire life, the world has been your village and the handful of others within a day's walk. Now, in just a few days, the world has become immense, filled with different faces, different foods, different gods. This forced migration, historians still argue, was one of the most effective, if brutal, ways the Qin dynasty broke down old regional loyalties and forged a new, single imperial identity. You don't know about that. You just know that you are starting to feel very, very small. You stick close to your father, observing how he navigates this new world. He is a man of few words, but he watches everything. He trades a small, well-made pot for a bag of salt with a merchant. He listens more than he speaks, gathering information about the road ahead. You learn from him, practicing the art of being quiet and observant. You spend the long hours on the cart sharpening your tools, the familiar rasp of stone on steel a comforting, meditative sound. But you are not just a passenger. You are an artisan, and you carry your purpose with you in a roll of worn leather. The road is long and the capital is still just a rumor on the horizon, but with every turn of the wheel, you are leaving your old life behind and moving deeper into the shadow of the first emperor. After more than a week of travel, the air begins to change. It's not just the humidity or the direction of the wind. The air itself feels heavier, thick with the smoke of thousands of fires and the dust of ceaseless construction. The trickle of travelers on the road becomes a flood, all funneling towards the same destination. And then you see it. Or rather, you see the signs of it. Rising above the horizon is not a single city, but a sprawling, hazy conglomeration of structures that seems to have no end. This isn't even the capital's Yunyang, your father murmurs. That is still further west. This is something else entirely. This is the project. Your cart is directed off the main imperial highway and onto a wide, beaten earth track. The noise, which had been a distant hum, grows into a low roar. It's the sound of 10,000 men shouting, of hammers ringing against stone, of saws biting into wood, and the deep, percussive thud of earth being pounded. It's the sound of a mountain being moved by human hands. The cart trundles past vast, open-sided sheds where carpenters are shaping enormous wooden beams, their surfaces covered in a blanket of fresh sawdust. You see fields piled high with roof tiles, stacked in dizzying numbers, enough to cover every building in your home province. And then you see the people, an ocean of them all dressed in the simple, drab tunics of laborers. They move in disciplined lines, carrying baskets of earth on their shoulders, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt. Guards in kine armor are everywhere, their bronze-tipped spears glinting in the sun. They stand on raised platforms, watching over the work with an air of detached efficiency. It's organized chaos, a human anthill of breathtaking scale. Your cart finally rolls to a stop in a designated area, and you are told to disembark. An administrator with a writing brush tucked behind his ear and a stack of bamboo slips in his hand checks your names against his list. He barely looks at you, his focus entirely on the characters on the bamboo. Potters. Section Azure Dragon, Workshop 7. Your overseer will be Master Fei, he says, pointing towards a section of the camp distinguished by a simple blue flag. Find your barracks, store your gear. Work begins at dawn. As you and your father carry your bundles towards your assigned section, you get a better sense of the place. It's not just a work camp, it's a city. A temporary disposable city built for a single purpose. The barracks are long, low buildings made of rammed earth and thatch, laid out in a brutally efficient grid. There are communal kitchens where steam billows from massive cooking pots, and sprawling latrine pits, the smell of which hangs heavy in the air. This place is a masterpiece of imperial logistics. It has to be to keep this many people alive and working. A strange but true detail that archaeologists have uncovered from the remains of these workers is the diversity of their diet. While many were fed a basic millet gruel, the skilled artisans like you often received better rations, including meat and more varied grains, a practical measure to keep the most crucial workers healthy and productive. You find Workshop 7. It's a huge, open-sided structure with a roof of bamboo and thatch to keep off the sun and rain. The floor is just packed earth, already covered in a fine layer of gray dust. Inside, dozens of men are already at work, their bodies moving with a focused rhythmic energy. The air smells of damp clay, wood smoke, and sweat. And at the center of the workshop, dominating the space, are rows and rows of kilns, built of reinforced brick and earth, like crouching beasts waiting to be fed. These are the dragon kilns, so named for their long, undulating shape, designed to fire large quantities of ceramics at a consistent temperature. Your new overseer, Master Fei, is a weary, energetic man with clay smeared on his cheek and a sharp, intelligent look in his eye. He greets your father with a respectful nod. He has heard of his reputation and then looks you over. "You're the boy with the knack for strong clay," he says. It's not a question. He points to a large pile of unprocessed, grayish earth in a corner of the workshop. That is your first test. Learn its properties. Find its spirit. We do not make simple bowls here. We make things that must last for 10,000 years. As the sun sets, the work does not stop. The entire compound is lit by the flickering orange glow of torches in the fierce, white-hot mouths of the kilns. The sounds of works often slightly but never cease. You lie on your straw pallet in the long, crowded barracks, listening to the symphony of snores, coughs, and murmurs of 100 sleeping men. You are just one small part of this immense, churning machine. The Emperor's ambition is so great in its own world, hidden from the eyes of ordinary people, dedicated to a purpose that is still a complete, terrifying mystery. And tomorrow, you will become a part of it. Dawn arrives not with the crowing of a rooster, but with the sound of a loud, clanging bell that echoes across the entire compound. There is no gentle waking here. One moment you are in the hazy world of dreams, the next you are awake, the reality of your situation settling in with the cool morning air. You and your father join the silent river of men heading for the kitchens, where you're handed a simple bowl of warm millet porridge. You eat quickly, standing, the way everyone else does. Time is a resource here, not to be wasted. After the meal, you follow your father to Workshop 7. Master Fei is already there, his hands dusty with dried clay, directing the first tasks of the day. He nods at you and gestures for you to follow him. He leads you away from the main working area, past the towering kilns, to a secluded section at the back of the workshop. Here, several large objects stand covered by coarse hemp cloths. A palpable sense of reverence surrounds them, and the few workers nearby speak in hushed tones. Master Fei stops in front of one of the covered shapes. For generations, the great lords have been buried with their servants, their horses, their entertainers, he says, his voice low, sacrificed, so they might continue to serve in the afterlife. You nod. You've heard of this practice, a grim tradition that has always seemed distant and barbaric. But the first emperor is not like other lords, Master Fei continues. His vision is greater. He does not need the ghosts of men, an eternal army that will not rot or decay. With a simple, deliberate movement, he reaches out and pulls the hemp cloth away. You instinctively take a step back, your breath catching in your throat. It takes a moment for your mind to process what you are seeing. It is a man. Or not a man. It is a soldier standing at attention, his hands positioned as if holding a long-vanished spear. He is made of clay. He is slightly larger than a real person, an effect that makes him seem both powerful and uncanny. His armor is rendered in meticulous detail, the small overlapping plates tied together with intricate knots, the sturdy shoulder guards, the clasp of his belt. His face is calm, impassive, his gaze fixed on some distant point in eternity. He is gray and unpainted, the raw, fired color of the earth, but he feels more alive than any statue you have ever seen. You can't help but stare. You've worked with clay your entire life, but you have never conceived of anything like this. This isn't a pot. It isn't a tile. It is a person captured in earth and fire. The sheer audacity of it is overwhelming. An army, an entire army of these things. The rumors you heard on the road suddenly feel small and inadequate. The reality is so much grander, so much stranger. This is our task, Master Fei says, his voice filled with a mixture of pride and awe, to build the Emperor his loyal army, a legion of guardians for his eternal sleep, 10,000 of them. Maybe more. No one knows the final number but the Emperor himself. You slowly walk around the figure, your eyes tracing every detail. You see the faint texture of fabric on his tunic, the carefully sculpted strands of his top knot, the defined muscles in his legs. This is not just craftsmanship, it is artistry of the highest order. But it's also deeply unsettling. You are looking at a replacement for human life, a ceramic shell intended to house a spirit, or perhaps to act as a placeholder for a real soldier in the afterlife. The exact religious or philosophical belief behind this substitution is still a matter of intense debate among scholars. Was it a humane evolution away from human sacrifice, or was it a logistical decision, believing that a loyal and dying army of clay was more reliable than the spirits of resentful, sacrificed men? You reach out, your fingers hesitating just before they touch the surface. You can feel the faint coolness of the terrataka. How? You whisper, the question directed at your father, at Master Fei, at the universe. Master Fei smiles, a rare, genuine smile. With good clay, hot fires, and many, many clever hands, he says. The bodies are made in parts. The legs, the torso, the arms, the head, all created separately and then joined together before firing. But the faces, each one must be different. The Emperor has decreed that his army will not be an army of identical puppets. Each soldier must be an individual. He turns and looks at you, his gaze intense. That is why you are here. That is why all the best artisans have been summoned. We are not just making objects, we are creating men. And you, he says, clapping you on the shoulder, his hand leaving a dusty handprint on your tunic. You are going to learn how. You look back at the silent soldier, his earthy gaze seeming to penetrate right through you. Your small, predictable world of bowls and tiles is gone forever. Your new world is one of clay men and imperial secrets. The sheer weight of what you've seen settles upon you over the next few days. It's a heavy knowledge, a secret that feels physically present, like a stone in your gut. This feeling is reinforced that very evening. As the work for the day concludes, Master Fei gathers all the newcomers from Workshop 7. He stands before you, his usual energetic demeanor replaced by a solemn gravity. The flickering torchlight casts long, dancing shadows, making his face a mask of seriousness. Listen to me, and listen well, he begins, his voice low but carrying to every corner of the assembled group. What you have seen today, what you will work on for all the days to come, is the greatest secret in the Empire. It is a matter of state security, but it is more than that. It is a matter of spiritual security for His Imperial Majesty. He lets that sink in. Spiritual security. This isn't just about hiding a construction project. It's about protecting the Emperor's very soul. You will not speak of this work to anyone outside your assigned workshop, he continues, his eyes scanning each face. Not to the cooks in the kitchens, not to the guards on the wall, not to a cousin you might see in another section. You certainly will not attempt to send any message, no matter how small or innocent, to your families. They know you are serving the Emperor. He pauses, letting the silence grow heavy. The penalty for breaking this oath of silence is not simple. It is not a quick beheading. He looks at a grim-faced guard standing near the edge of the group, his hand resting on the pommel of his bronze sword. The offender will be executed, and their family to the third degree, your parents, your wife, your brothers, your children, your brothers, your sisters, will all be executed as well. The name of your family will be erased from all records. It will be as if you never existed. A cold dread washes over you. This is the infamous kin policy of collective responsibility, a brutal but effective tool for enforcing loyalty and order. You look at your father, whose face is an unreadable stone mask, but you can feel the tension in his shoulders. The secret is no longer just a wondrous, audacious project. It is now a cage. You are all trapped inside it, and the bars of the cage are forged from your love for your families. The weight in your gut is no longer just a cold fear. The following days, you are put to the most basic of tasks. You are not yet allowed to touch the figures. Instead, you are assigned to a team sifting unmixing clay. It's back-breaking, monotonous work. You haul baskets of the raw, gray earth from the massive piles outside to the mixing pits inside the workshop. There, you would water in specific types of sand, stomping on the mixture with your bare feet for hours until it reaches the perfect consistency. But the scale is different, and the pressure is immense. During this time, you learn the unwritten rules of the workshop. You learn to read the moods of Master Fei. You learn which of the older artisans are willing to share a quiet tip and which ones prefer to be left alone. You learn to move with a purpose, to never be seen standing idle. The workshop is a complex social ecosystem, a miniature version of the Empire itself, built on hierarchy, skill, and a shared, unspoken read. One day, while you're cleaning the mixing pits, you find a small, curiously shaped object half buried in the muck. It's a small, fired clay token, no bigger than your thumb, with a single, unfamiliar character inscribed on it. You pocket it, and later, When you have a moment of privacy, you show it to your father. He turns it over in his hand, his brow furrowed. "This is not a kin character," he murmurs. "This is an old character from the state of Chu. This small token is a hint of a fascinating, hidden truth." Although the emperor had famously standardized the script across the empire, many of the artisans conscripted for his projects came from the newly conquered states. They were forced to use the new script in all official capacities, but in small, private ways, they clung to their old identities. Archaeologists have found tiles and bricks in the mausoleum complex marked with these older, regional scripts, quiet acts of defiance or simple habit from men and women forced to build a new world for their conqueror. This token in your hand is a tiny piece of that subtle resistance, a whisper of a forbidden identity. You hold the token, feeling its smooth, fired surface. It feels dangerous, a connection to a past that is being systematically erased. You think of the artisan from Chu who made it. Was it an accident? Or was it a deliberate act? A way of saying "I was here" in a language the emperor was trying to stamp out. You look around the bustling workshop, at the hundreds of men all working towards a single goal. You realize that this place isn't just a work site, a place where 1,000 different histories and identities are being melted down unreformed into a single imperial vision. But no matter how hot the fire, some things refuse to melt away completely. After weeks of proving your diligence in the clay pits, Master Fei finally decides you are ready. One morning, he taps you on the shoulder and says, "Enough mud stomping. Your real work begins today." He leads you and a handful of other apprentices to a different section of the workshop, one dedicated to the initial shaping of the terracotta body parts. The air here is less about raw labor and more about focused craft. "Everything begins with the earth," Master Fei says, gesturing to several large bins filled with the prepared clay you and others have been so painstakingly mixing. But not all clay is the same. He explains that the gray, sandy soil from the riverbanks near Mount Lee is uniquely suited for this project. It's strong and pliable, and when fired, it becomes incredibly durable. Modern geological analysis has confirmed this. The local lowest soil is rich in quartz and mica, which act as nacre, preventing the massive figures from cracking in the kiln. It's as if the land itself was destined for this purpose. Before you can shape a soldier, you must understand the soul of the clay, he says, grabbing a large lump and slapping it down on a wooden workbench. It has a memory. It has a will. If you fight it, it will break your heart in the kiln. You must persuade it. Your first lessons are deceptively simple. You are not given a mold or a complex shape to create. Instead, you are tasked with making solid, thick coils of clay. You take a lump of the cool, damp earth and begin to roll it out on the bench. It's a familiar motion, something you've done 1,000 times. But the scale is different. The coils need to be thick as your arm and perfectly consistent in their diameter. It takes you several tries. Your first few attempts are lumpy and uneven, glances at your work, and simply grunts again. There is no praise here, only the absence of criticism. You learn to feel the clay in a new way. You feel the pockets of air that need to be worked out, the dry spots that need a touch more water. Your hands, your arms, your entire body become part of the process. You are not just rolling clay, you are conditioning it, aligning its particles, preparing it for its grand purpose. This is the foundation. Every single part of a sole of his boot to the top of his head begins with these simple, perfect coils. Once you have mastered the coils, you move on to slabs. You learn to pound and press the clay into large, flat rectangles of a specific, uniform thickness. This is harder than it looks. A slab that is too thick will explode in the kiln. Too thin, and it will warp and sag. You use a simple wooden straight edge to check your work, your eyes constantly scanning for imperfections. It's during this training that you begin to understand the genius and the pressure of the system. This is not individual artistry in the way you once knew it. This is a production line, a process broken down into 100 small, repeatable steps. While your ultimate purpose is to create something that looks like an individual, the process to get there is one of rigorous uniformity and quality control. Your father, working in a different part of the workshop, is specializing in the hand, shaping fingers and knuckles with painstaking care. Others are focused just on making the ears. Everyone has their small, specific role in the creation of the whole. One afternoon, you see one of the older apprentices, a boy named Wei, slumped to the ground, his face pale. The heat, the relentless pace, the constant dust, it takes a toll. 2 guards unceremoniously drag him out of the workshop. You never see him again. The incident is a stark reminder of the human cost of this grand project. Historians still debate the mortality rates among the workers. While some skeletal remains show evidence of a hard life and occasional violence, others suggest that, for skilled artisans at least, conditions were not as deadly as the legends of workers being buried alive might suggest. Still, looking at the empty space where Wei was working, you know this place consumes people as surely as the kilns consume wood. By the end of the day, your arms ache and your back is stiff. But you have a stack of perfect, uniform clay slabs to show for your effort. Master Fei inspects them, running his calloused finger along an edge. He nods, a single, curt gesture of approval. It's the first praise you have received, and it feels like a cool drink of water after a day in the sun. You have passed the test. You have learned to listen to the clay. Soon, you will be allowed to use these coils and slabs to build something more than just a foundation. You will begin to build a man. Now that you have proven your mastery over the basic materials, you are initiated into the next stage of the process, assembly. Master Fei leads you to the part of the workshop where the soldiers begin to take shape, and it's here that you witness the true breathtaking efficiency of the Emperor's vision. It's not a place of sculptors chipping away at a single block of stone. It's a place of construction, an assembly line for creating an eternal army. A soldier must stand strong, Master Fei explains, pointing to a row of disembodied legs, standing eerily on their own. The foundation is everything. He shows you how the legs are built. They are not sculpted from a single lump of clay. Instead, they are made using molds. It's an ingenious, modular system. You see stacks of curved terracotta molds for the front and back of the lower legs, the thighs, and the feet. The workers draw carefully made clay slabs into these molds. Once the clay has firmed up a bit, the 2 halves are removed. The seams are carefully joined together with wet clay slurry, and the surface is smoothed until the joint is invisible. The result is a hollow, perfectly shaped leg. This modular approach is the secret to the army scale. It allows for relatively unskilled workers to produce the basic components quickly and consistently. You learn, about 8 different molds for the torsos, creating soldiers of different builds and postures, some poised for attack, others standing in stoic watchfulness. There are different molds for arms, bent at various angles. By combining these standard parts in different ways, the artisans can create a huge variety of poses without having to sculpt every single soldier from scratch. It's a level of mass production that the world has never seen before. It's a factory for making men. Your first job in this section is simple but crucial. You are part of a team that assembles the basic body. You take a pair of finished legs, solid and heavy, and carefully mount a hollow torso on top. The connection point, the waist, is a thick coil of clay that you must expertly blend and smooth, ensuring a powerful bond. Then come the arms attached at the shoulders, and finally, the basic, featureless head. The process is repeated over and over, a steady rhythm of lifting, joining. You work in a team with 3 other men. An older, silent artisan who specializes in joining the torsos, his movements economical and precise. A lanky teenager who attaches the arms, constantly humming a tune from his home province under his breath. And you, responsible for preparing the clay coils that act as the mortar holding these human bricks together. You become a well-oiled machine, each man anticipating the other's movements. You don't need to speak. The steady creation of these silent, headless figures. One day, a moment of clumsiness sends a nearly completed torso crashing to the floor. It shatters into 100 pieces. The workshop falls silent. The humming stops. Everyone turns to look. The overseer of your section, a stern man named Bao, strides over. The young man who dropped it is trembling, his face ashen. You all expect a beating, or worse. But Bao simply looks at the shattered pieces, then at the terrified artisan. Sweep it up. The dust can be reused. Get another torso. He then walks away. This small moment is revealing. While cruelty is a constant threat, pragmatism is the true ruling principle of this place. A skilled worker is valuable than a single piece of clay. Wasting time on punishment is less efficient than getting back to work. This incident also hints at a curious fact that archaeologists would later discover. Hidden on the bodies of many warriors, in places like the armpits or the crooks of the elbows, are stamped characters. These aren't just random marks. They are names, not the names or symbols of the foremen like Bao, or even the master artisans of the workshop. It was a system of quality control. If a figure was found to be flawed, it could be traced back to the specific workshop and the foreman responsible. It was a clever and ruthless way of ensuring that every single part of this eternal assembly line met the Emperor's exacting standards. As you sweep up the pieces of the broken torso, you feel a new level of understanding. This place is not just about building an army. It's about building a system of control, of accountability that mirrors the new empire itself. Every person, every piece of clay has its designated place and purpose. And as you prepare the next coil of clay, ready to join another torso to another pair of legs, you feel like you are a part of that system, a small, human cog in a grand, terrifying, and awe-inspiring machine. After you've proven your skill and reliability on the assembly floor, the day you've been waiting for finally arrives. It marks your graduation from a mere builder to a true artisan. Master Fei approaches you, his expression uncharacteristically thoughtful. Your hands are steady, he says. Your coils are strong. But can you give the clay a soul? He leads you away from the noisy, repetitive work of body assembly to a quieter, more revered corner of the workshop. Here, about a dozen men sit on low stools, their focus absolute. In front of them are the completed, headless bodies of the soldiers, and on small wooden stands beside them sit the featureless, egg-like heads. This, you realize with a jolt of nervous excitement, is where the army gets its faces. The bodies provide the form, Master Fei explains, his voice dropping to a near whisper. But the face provides the spirit. His Majesty has commanded that no two soldiers shall be identical. When he inspects his legion in the afterlife, he wants to see an army of individuals, not a field of clay dolls. This is your new station. Your task is to take the blank, mass-produced heads and give them life. It's a dizzying responsibility. You are handed your own set of fine sculpting tools, sharpened bamboo sticks, bone knives, and smooth, polished stones for burnishing. Use it before your first blank head, a smooth canvas of gray clay. The headless body of the soldier, it will belong to stands before you, its posture suggesting a certain kind of character, a veteran, perhaps, or a young recruit. Your first attempts are clumsy. You try to sculpt a face from your imagination, but the features are generic, lifeless. The eyes are just hollows, the mouth a simple line. It looks like a mass, not a man. Master Fei watches you for a time, then sighs. You are thinking too hard, he says. Look for one. He gestures to the men working around you. Look at the guard by the door. Look at the guard by the door. Look at your own reflection in a water bucket. Look at the face of your father. Your job is not to create, but to capture. It's a profound piece of advice. You stop trying to invent and start observing. During your brief moments of rest, you study the faces around you. You notice the way a man's eyebrows arch when he's tired, the deep lines etched around the eyes of the older artisans, the set of a young guard's jaw. You see the incredible diversity of the empire reflected in the faces of the workers, the high cheekbones of the men from the northern plains, the broader noses of those from the south, the different shapes of eyes and beards. The theory that every soldier's face was modeled on a real, living person is a romantic and popular one, though historians consider it logistically impossible. There simply wouldn't have been enough time or unique models. The more likely truth, which you are now discovering for yourself, is a brilliant compromise. The artisans worked from a set of standard facial components, say repertoire of perhaps 10 different types of eyes, noses, mouths, and ears, and then combined them in unique ways, adding individual details like mustaches, beards, wrinkles, and expressions. It's the same modular principle as the bodies, but applied with a much finer degree of artistry. You start again, this time with a specific face in mind, a grumpy old farmer from your home village who was famous for his magnificent bushy eyebrows. You begin with the eyebrows, shaping the clay into thick, expressive arches. Then you add a broad nose, a thin, downturned mouth. You work on the ears, adding the lobes. Slowly, painstakingly, a personality begins to emerge from the clay. It's not a perfect portrait, but it has character. It feels. You spend your days in a state of deep concentration. Each head is a new challenge. For one, you sculpt the face of a young, eager recruit, his expression open and slightly naive. For another, you create a hardened veteran, his face a roadmap of past battles. With a scar you add with a quick flick of a bamboo tool. You learn to make different kinds of facial hair, a key element of individuazotheia. You roll tiny, thin coils of clay and apply them one by one to create a flowing mustache, oaring mustache, a technique that must have been incredibly time-consuming. You fall into the rhythm of the work. The rest of the workshop, with its noise and its labor, fades into the background. Your world shrinks to the space between you and the clay face in front of you. You are no longer just an artisan following instructions. You are a creator, a giver of identity. You are taking these mass-produced shells and breathing a spark of individuality into them, ensuring that the Emperor's silent army would not be a legion of clones, but a crowd of silent, waiting souls, and each face you complete is one more soldier ready to stand guard for eternity. The work of sculpting faces becomes your entire world. Days blend into one another, measured not by the sun, but by the number of heads you complete. You develop a deep, quiet pride in your work. You are giving life to the clay, but in a way, it is also giving life to you, providing a sense of purpose in this strange, captive world. The fear of the overseers and the drudgery of the camp are still there, but they fade into the background when you are lost in the intricate work of shaping an eye or detailing a mustache. One afternoon, as you are putting the finishing touches on a face, a stern-looking soldier with a long, braided beard, you have an impulse. It's a quiet, foolish, and deeply human idea. With a tiny, sharpened point of bamboo, you inscribe a character onto the soldier's inner collar, a place that will be hidden once the head is fired and attached to the body. It's a single character, the first part of your own name. Your heart pounds as you do it. It's a direct violation of the rules, not the spoken rules about secrecy, but the unwritten rules about the anonymity of the work. They are not yours. To leave your own mark on one feels like an act of rebellion, a theft of a tiny piece of this grand imperial project. You quickly smooth over the area, but the mark is there, pressed into the memory of the clay. You glance around, but no one has noticed. The other artisans are lost in their own work. But when you look over at your father, who is working a few benches down, he catches your eye. He gives you a very slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head. It's not a scolding but a warning. A look that says, "Be careful." Later that evening, as you walk back to the barracks, he puts a hand on your shoulder. "I know what you did," he says quietly. "Pride is a good thing for an artisan. But here, it can be dangerous." He then tells you that you are not the first to have this idea. He has seen other artisans do similar things. A man from a pottery workshop famous for its fine ceramics might subtly shape the ear of a soldier in a style unique to his home region. Another might press the pattern from his own worn tunic into an unseen patch of clay on a soldier's back. These are what future generations might call Easter eggs, hidden signatures left by the creators. While historians and archaeologists have documented the official form and stamps used for quality control, the question of these more personal, hidden marks is a subject of ongoing, quiet debate. It's almost impossible to prove whether a subtle variation was a deliberate signature or just a stylistic quirk, but the impulse is deeply human. In a project that demanded uniformity, anonymity, leaving a small, secret mark was a way of saying I existed. My hands made this. It was a tiny rebellion against being erased, a whisper of identity in a place designed to stamp it out. The discovery makes you feel a strange sense of connection to the other workers. You are not just cogs in a machine. You are a secret brotherhood of creators, each leaving your ghost in the clay. The next day, you see it everywhere. You notice the slightly unconventional knot on the soldier's armor and recognize it as the style of an artisan who used to be a fisherman. You see a particular style of mustache and know it was made by a man from the northern steppes. The army is not just a collection of faces you've sculpted. It's a tapestry woven with the secret threads of 1,000 different lives. This knowledge changes how you see your work. You still feel the pride, but now it's tempered with a sense of shared risk and secret camaraderie. You don't make your own mark again. Your father's warning was wise, but you continue to sculpt with the same care and dedication, knowing that your work is part of something larger than just the emperor's ambition. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. One afternoon, you are assigned to help move a batch of newly completed, unfired heads to the drying racks. As you lift one, the face of a young archer, his expression one of intense focus, you feel a small, rough patch on the underside of the chin. You discreetly run your thumb over it. It's a mark. Two small, simple lines, almost like a child's drawing of a bird in flight. It's the signature of the old, silent man who works at the end of your row, a man who never speaks but whose hands move with the grace of a lifetime of skill. A quiet smile touches your lips. You are not alone. Your secret is safe. It's part of the silent, collective story being told in the city of clay. Once a sufficient number of completed figures' bodies, heads, and hands have air-dried to a precise, leather-hard state, the next terrifying and crucial phase begins. It's time for the trial by fire. The figures are carefully transported from the workshops to the domain of the kiln masters, a group of men who are regarded with a mixture of respect and fear. They are the keepers of the fire, the alchemists who will turn your soft, fragile clay into stand millennia. The kilns themselves dominate the landscape of the compound. They are not the simple, upright kilns you knew in your village. These are massive, dragon-like structures, long and semi-subterranean, built into the earth to conserve heat. They are marvels of engineering, capable of reaching incredibly high temperatures, yet with a sophisticated system of vents and flues that allows the kiln masters to control the heat with remarkable precision. Your job for now is simply to help transport the unfired clay. It's nerve-wracking work. You and a team of other men carefully lift a completed soldier, its parts now joined together, but still terribly fragile. The figure is heavy, awkward, and worth months of labor. A single stumble, a moment of inattention, could reduce it to a pile of dust and regret. You move in a slow, shuffling procession, your muscles straining, your breath held tight. The path to the kilns is a path of high anxiety. The head kiln master is a man named Go, whose face is a web of fine lines from years of squinting into the searing heat of the kiln's mouth. His eyebrows are singed, and his voice is a low rasp, as if his throat has been permanently scorched. He directs the loading of the kiln with a minimum of words, using sharp hand gestures. He inspects every single piece before it is allowed inside. He runs a hand over the surface, taps it lightly with his knuckle, listening for the sound it makes. He is listening for hidden flaws, for air pockets, for any imperfection that could cause a catastrophe in the fire. You watch as your own work, the faces you have spent weeks sculpting, are carried towards him. Your stomach tightens. It feels like watching your children being led to judgment. Master Go picks up one of your heads, the one with the bushy eyebrows you modeled on the old farmer from your village. He turns it over and over, his expertise missing nothing. He gives a curt nod, and the head is passed inside to be stacked carefully with the others. It's a small victory, but it feels immense. The process of firing is not quick. It takes days. First, a small, slow fire is lit to gently evaporate any remaining moisture from the clay. If the heat rises too quickly, the water trapped inside will turn to steam and the figure will explode. This is the most delicate phase. The kiln masters are constantly tending the fires, keeping them low and steady, reading the smoke, smelling the air, using an instinct born from 1,000 firings. Then the heat is gradually increased. The kiln masters feed more and more wood into the fire boxes, and the dragon kiln begins to roar. The temperature climbs steadily, reaching a point around 900 to 1,000 degrees Celsius. Modern science would determine where a magical transformation occurs. The clay particles fuse together, a process called vitrification. The material is no longer clay, it has become ceramic. The heat pouring from the kiln is immense. Even standing 20 paces away, you can feel it on your skin, a dry, oppressive wave. At night, the entire area around the kilns glows with a pulsing, orange light, as if the earth itself has a molten heart. It looks like a vision of the underworld. The greatest risk in this process is a failure of the kiln itself. You hear hushed stories of past disasters, a kiln wall collapsing, a whole batch of figures being ruined, fused together into a single, monstrous sculpture. The pressure on the kiln masters is unimaginable. The success of the entire project rests on their skill. One strange and debated aspect of their technique is how they manage to achieve such consistent temperatures throughout these enormous kilns. Some scholars suggest they had sophisticated methods of measuring temperature, perhaps by observing the color of the heat through spy holes, while others believe it was based on pure, unwritten artisanal experience. After several days at peak temperature, the fires are allowed to die down. But the process is not over. The kiln must cool slowly over the course of another several days. If it cools too quickly, the figures will crack from thermal shock. The waiting is agonizing. All that work, all that artistry, is hidden inside the silent, cooling beast of a kiln. No one knows if it was a success or a failure. Finally, the day comes when the kiln is cool enough to be unbricked. A team of workers carefully removes the bricks sealing the entrance. Master Go himself is the first to peer inside. The entire workshop holds its breath. He emerges from the smoky darkness, his face impassive. Then, a slow smile spreads across his scorched features. A good firing, he rasps. A good firing, he rasps. A collective sigh of relief ripples through the crowd. They have been transformed from fragile clay into an eternal terrataka. The newly fired soldiers are carefully removed from the cooled kiln, and the difference is immediate. They are no longer the soft, grayish-brown of dried clay. They have been transformed into a hard, resonant terrataka, their color a warm, earthy red or a deep, satisfying gray depending on the firing conditions and their position in the kiln. They feel solid, permanent. When you tap one with your knuckle, it emits a clear, ringing tone. You are part of the team tasked with inspecting the finished pieces, checking for cracks or imperfections that may have developed during the firing. It's a more relaxed job, a moment of quiet satisfaction after the tension of the kilns. You run your hands over the smooth, hard surfaces of the figures, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. Your work and the work of hundreds of others has survived. As you are inspecting the torso of an armored officer, your fingers trace the intricate details of the overlapping plates of his armor. And then you see it, preserved forever in the fired clay, near a tightly sculpted knot, is the perfect, whorled impression of a human fingerprint. You stop mesmerized. You lean in closer. It's not a smudge or an accident. It's a clear, deep print left by an artisan who pressed a piece of clay into place 2,000 years before you will ever exist. In this vast, impersonal project, dedicated to an emperor's immortal glory, here is the most intimate and personal sign of life imaginable. It's a signature more profound than any written character. You look at the print, a tiny map of ridges and valleys, and you can almost feel the presence of the person who left it. Was it a man or a woman? Records show some women were indeed part of these labor forces, though their exact roles are often unclear. Were their hands calloused and rough, or was this a final, delicate touch? Did they even notice they had left it there? For a moment, the immense gulf of time collapses. You feel a direct, physical connection to this anonymous maker. This isn't a flight of fancy. The discovery of ancient fingerprints on the terrataka warriors is a real and incredibly poignant detail for archaeologists. These small marks provide a direct link to the individuals who built the army. In some cases, forensic analysis of the prints has even been able to estimate the age of the artisan, suggesting that some of the workers were surprisingly young, perhaps in their mid-teens. For you, in this moment, the fingerprint is a revelation. It reminds you that this army was not built by an abstract imperial decree, but by the hands of countless individuals, each with their own story, their own touch. You continue your inspection with new eyes. You start to see the human element everywhere. You see the tool mark that was not quite smoothed over, a slight asymmetry in a pair of pauldrons, a subtle variation in the way a belt was fastened. These are not flaws. They are the echoes of human hands, the quiet evidence of the manual process. In a project striving for a kind of superhuman perfection, the small, human imperfections are what make it feel so alive. Later you mention the fingerprint to your father. He nods, unsurprised. The clay remembers everything, he says. It remembers the fire, it remembers the tool, and it remembers the hand that shaped it. He tells you a story from his own youth, about his master finding a single dog hair embedded in the glaze of a prized vase. His master wasn't angry, he was amused. He said it gave the vase a secret story. This idea of a secret story, a hidden history, is something that scholars of the army constantly grapple with. They can analyze the chemical composition of the clay and the pigments. They can catalog the different types of armor and hairstyles, but they can never fully know the stories of the people who made them. Was the artisan who left the fingerprint proud of his work? Was he a homesick conscript dreaming of his family? Was he a loyal servant of the emperor, or a resentful subject of a conquered state? The fingerprint is a question that can never be answered, a single, perfect clue to a life that is otherwise lost to history. You gently run your own finger over the ancient print, a ghost touching a ghost across an impossible span of time. The soldier with his stern terracotta face seems to look back at you, a silent guardian not just of his emperor, but of the secrets in the stories embedded in his own creation. He will carry this small, human touch with him into the darkness of the pit, a secret signature waiting thousands of years to be found. Once the terracotta figures have passed their post-firing inspection, they are moved to yet another section of this sprawling city of craft, the painting workshops. If the kilns were the domain of fire and fury, this area is a world of quiet focus and vibrant color. The air here doesn't smell of smoke and sweat, but of earth, minerals, and the sharp, strange scent of lacquer. You are temporarily reassigned here, not to paint, but to help with the preparation. Your first sight of the painting floor is breathtaking. Rows upon rows of the fired, gray and red soldiers stand waiting, like a monochrome army about to be brought into glorious life, and around them, artisans are grinding minerals on stone palettes, mixing them with binding agents in small ceramic bowls. The ground is a kaleidoscope of powdered colors, brilliant malachite green, azurite blue, cinnabar red, and a stark bone white. The process, you learn, is meticulous. The fired terracotta is porous, so a simple coat of paint would just be absorbed or flake off. To prevent this, each soldier is first coated with 1 or 2 layers of a dark, brownish lacquer derived from the sap of a local tree. This lacquer acts as a primer, sealing the terracotta and creating a smooth, dark surface for the paint to adhere to. Your job is to help apply this sticky, foul-smelling substance using wide brushes made of animal hair. But you do it with care, knowing it is the foundation for the beauty that will follow. Once the lacquer is dry, the master painters begin their work. These are some of the most respected artisans in the entire compound. They work with a quiet, intense concentration, their brushes moving with a fluid grace. You watch fascinated as a painter takes a figure. You recognize one of the stern-faced veterans whose face you sculpted and begins to transform him. He doesn't just slap on the paint. He builds it up in layers. A flat pinkish stone for the face, hands, and ears, creating the look of flesh. Then he carefully paints the eyebrows black, the lips a deep vermilion red. The armor is painted in rich, dark browns to simulate leather, or in stark blacks and greens, with the tiny rivets and knots picked out in contrasting colors. The soldier's tunic is a swirl of vibrant purple, a color so rare and expensive, be reserved for high-ranking officers. The effect is astonishing. The soldier you sculpted, who had a certain stony power in his monochrome state, is now vibrant, lifelike, and almost shockingly real. The colors give him a presence and immediacy. He no longer looks like a statue. He looks like a man who has just paused for a moment in the middle of a busy, colorful life. You suddenly understand the Emperor's vision on a whole new level. He was just creating a symbolic army. He was creating a perfect, parallel world, frozen in time, with all the color and detail of reality. You see painters working on the details of a general's uniform, his armor adorned with intricate, colorful pheasant feathers. You see another artisan painting the eyes, adding a final, tiny white dot to the pupil to give it a lifelike glint. It's this attention to detail that elevates the work from craft to art. A little-known fact is the sheer expense and effort that went into these pigments. The vibrant purple, for instance, was not a simple vegetable dye, a synthetic pigment created by Chinese alchemists through a complex process of heating ground minerals to extreme temperatures. It's a color that was incredibly rare and chemically complex, a testament to the advanced chemical knowledge of the Qin dynasty. It was, quite literally, a man-made miracle. For decades after their modern discovery, the world would know the Terrataka warriors only as they appeared after excavation, a monolithic army of plain, earthy Terrataka. The fragile 2,000-year-old paint, exposed to the air after centuries in a stable, dark environment, would often unflake, often turn to dust within minutes of being unearthed. It was only through painstaking conservation efforts and new scientific techniques that their original, polychromatic glory could be understood and, in some cases, preserved. The image of a gray army is an accident of time. The reality was a dazzling, psychedelic legion. You stand back and look at the row of newly painted soldiers, a vibrant, silent crowd. They seem to chatter in the language of color. A green-faced soldier stands next to one with a pink face, another with a white face. The colors aren't always naturalistic. Some faces are painted with swirls of color, almost like masks. The meaning of this is debated. Was it symbolic, representing different unit types or roles? Looking at them, you don't care about the academic reasons. You just see the power of it. The army in living color is 100 times more intimidating, more alive than the gray version. They are a legion of ghosts, polished and dressed for an eternal parade. And you help to give them their brilliant, fleeting skin. You continue your work in the painting workshops, applying the dark, sticky undercoat of lacquer to the Terrataka figures. The smell becomes a permanent part of your world, clinging to your clothes and hands. As you work, you watch the master painters, and you begin to notice a final, crucial step in their process, one that happens after the last vibrant pigment has been applied. After a soldier is fully painted, and the colors have had time to set, another artisan approaches. This person carries a bowl of a different kind of lacquer, clearer and finer than the thick, dark primer you've been applying. With a soft, wide brush, they carefully coat the entire painted surface of the soldier. This final layer is a protective sealant, designed to shield the delicate, mineral-based paints from moisture in the passage of time. It gives the soldier a faint, subtle sheen, a glow that makes the colors seem even richer and deeper. This lacquer is the secret to the army's intended vibrancy. It's the shield that was meant to preserve the living colors for all eternity. Your father, who has also been assigned to this section, tells you that the formula for this lacquer is a closely guarded secret, known only to a handful of masters. It's not just simple tree sap. It's a complex mixture, a binding agent that holds the powdery pigments to the terracotta surface. The exact composition of this binding medium is one of the greatest puzzles for modern conservators. For many years after the warriors were excavated, the paint would curl and flake off almost immediately upon contact with the air. The sudden change in humidity would cause the ancient lacquer ground layer to shrink, taking the paint with it. Scientists have since identified the lacquer as coming from the Chinese lacquer tree, but they believe it was mixed with other substances, perhaps animal-based glues or egg whites, to create the perfect adhesive. The quest to fully understand and replicate this 2,200-year-old formula to find a way to preserve the paint on newly excavated warriors is a major ongoing challenge in the field. The artisans of the Qin dynasty possessed a chemical knowledge that, in this specific application, we are still struggling to perfectly replicate. One day you witness a small disaster that underscores the importance of this final coat. A newly painted figure, a beautiful archer kneeling in readiness, is accidentally jostled before its final lacquer coat has been applied. It doesn't fall or break, but the sleeve of a passing worker brushes against its painted arm. A visible streak of brilliant green powder is left on the worker's sleeve, and a dull gray patch is now visible on the archer's arm. Is as fragile as colored dust. The master painter lets out a string of curses and sets about repairing the damage. But the lesson is clear. The color is precious, and the lacquer is its lifeblood. You begin to appreciate the layers of technology involved. First, the high-quality clay, then the advanced kiln technology, then the rare and synthetic pigments, and finally, this sophisticated lacquer technique. Each step is a marvel of craft and science, all working together to achieve the Emperor's vision of an unfading, eternal reality. You also notice the smell. The lacquer has a sharp, almost medicinal odor. In the enclosed space of the workshop, it can make your head feel light. You see some of the lacquer workers chewing on herbs to ward off the fumes. There is a strange, little-known side effect to working with raw lacquer sap. It can cause a severe allergic reaction, a painful, itchy rash similar to poison ivy. The artisans who specialized in this work likely built up a tolerance over time, or were perhaps chosen for their natural resistance to its effects. It was a hazardous job, another hidden cost of creating this masterpiece. As you apply the dark primer to the leg of a cavalryman, you think about the layers of secrecy and knowledge. The secret of the project itself, the secret of the master artisan's signatures. The secret of the master artisan's signatures. This entire place is built on knowledge that is compartmentalized, shared only on a need-to-know basis. It ensures control, but it also means that if the masters were to disappear, the knowledge would disappear with them too. You look at a fully completed soldier, gleaming with its final coat of lacquer, its colors dazzlingly bright. It looks indestructible, a perfect fusion of earth mineral and human ingenuity. It is designed to cheat time, to present a perfect, vibrant image of life to its master in the darkness of the tomb. You couldn't possibly know that this final, protective layer would become the most fragile part of the whole equation, the very thing that would make its fleeting beauty crumble to dust when it was finally returned to the light. Once a cohort of soldiers is fully painted and lacquered, they are not immediately sent to their final resting place. They are moved to vast, open-air courtyards to cure completely, and it is here that they are finally organized into their proper military units. For the first time, you see not just individual figures, but the beginnings of a true army. You are assigned to a team responsible for moving and assembling one of the most remarkable and visually striking units, the kneeling archers. These figures are a masterpiece of both artistry and engineering. Unlike the standing infantrymen, the kneeling archer is a more complex sculpture, a single, solid piece of terracotta crafted for maximum stability. The first time you help lift one, you are struck by its density. It's incredibly heavy and solid, with a low center of gravity. The pose is a frozen moment of intense action and perfect stillness. The archer kneels on his right knee, his left knee raised, his body twisted as if tracking a target. His hands are positioned to hold a crossbow, one hand gripping the stock, the other poised near where the trigger mechanism would be. The details are exquisite. The tread on the soles of his shoes, designed to grip the earth, is intricately carved. As you and your team carry the archer to his designated place in the formation, the flat, broad base created by his kneeling leg and his feet makes him exceptionally stable. This wasn't an accident. The artisans knew that a standing figure with a raised arm holding a bow would be top-heavy and prone to breaking. By sculpting him in this low, compact pose, they ensured he would remain intact for eternity. It's a perfect marriage of form and function. You place the archer in a line with others just like him. As the ranks grow, the effect is hypnotic. Dozens, then hundreds of kneeling archers, all facing the same direction, their invisible crossbows all aimed at the same unseen enemy. They form the vanguard of the army, the front line of attack, meant to unleash a devastating volley of arrows before the main infantry engages. It's here, working with the archers, that you learn another fascinating detail. Many of the warriors were originally intended to have accessories made from other materials. You see artisans carefully fitting real silk cords to their armor or attaching leather straps. Some scholars have even speculated that the archers might have had real feathers on their arrows, and that the generals might have worn real silk tassels on their armor. These organic materials have, of course, long since decayed, leaving only the terracotta and bronze behind. But in your time, you see them in their full glory, adding another layer of startling realism to the figures. As you look at the ranks of archers, you notice subtle differences among them. While the bodies are largely uniform, the faces are all unique, a product of your own workshop. You spot a face you sculpted weeks ago, one with a particularly grim, determined expression. Seeing him now in his full color as part of a unit gives you a powerful sense of connection to the whole. You didn't just make a face, you made the face of a soldier in the front line of the Emperor's Eternal Guard. Your father points out a small, almost unattainable detail on the back of one archer's hand. It's a tiny, stamped character. It's not one of the foreman's quality control marks. It's a number. You start looking and see them on others, subtly placed. This is part of the immense organizational system of the army. Every soldier, every weapon, every chariot part was likely cataloged and tracked. The logistics of creating and assembling an army of this size were as complex, as managing a real war. The numbers were part of a vast, silent bureaucracy, ensuring every piece of the puzzle ended up in exactly the right place. The existence and meaning of these numerical marks are still a topic of study. Were they inventory numbers? Did they correspond to a specific pit or formation? Or were they part of the manufacturing process itself? The answer is likely a combination of all three, a testament to the Qin administration's obsession with order and control. You stand back and survey the formation of kneeling archers, their silent vigil a powerful statement of readiness. Behind them, you can see other teams assembling the ranks of standing infantry, the spearmen, and the halberdiers. The army is coming together, piece by piece. It's a slow, deliberate process, like a tide coming in. You are no longer just making individual objects. You are participating in the creation of a grand, strategic tableau. This isn't just a collection of statues, written in clay and bronze, designed to fight and win a war in the afterlife. And these silent, kneeling archers are the first, deadly statement in that eternal conflict. The final stage of outfitting the soldiers is perhaps the most surreal. After the archers are in formation and the infantry are ranked, a different kind of artisan arrives, their footsteps heavier, their work accompanied by the sharp, metallic clang of bronze. These are the armorers and weaponsmiths, and they bring with them the finishing touch that transforms the army from a symbolic legion into a truly menacing force. They bring the weapons. You are assigned to help distribute them, and the weight of the objects you carry is startling. This is not ceremonial stagecraft. The weapons are real. You lift a bundle of bronze arrowheads and their deadly triangular points glint in the sunlight. They are still sharp, their edges honed to a fine point. You handle a halberd. Its long wooden shaft now decayed in the future but perfectly solid in your hands. Its bronze blade a complex and lethal combination, a dagger axe. The most impressive weapon you handle is a sword. You pull one from its simple wooden scabbard, and the blade emerges with a soft, whispery sound. It is longer and narrower than the swords you've seen from the old kingdoms. It's a kin sword, a superior design for stabbing and thrusting. But what truly stuns you is the blade itself. It gleams with a slick, silvery sheen, and it seems utterly untouched by time or rust. It looks as if it were forged yesterday. You run your thumb gingerly along the flat of the blade. It feels unnaturally smooth. The overseer of the weaponsmiths, a man with a fearsome scar across his cheek, sees you admiring it. Chrome, he says, with a gruff sense of pride. A secret of the Emperor's workshop, a metal coating that cheats the damp in the earth. These blades will be sharp enough to draw blood 1,000 years from now. HES not wrong. The discovery of trace amounts of chromium oxide on these bronze weapons was one of the most sensational findings of the 20th century. For years, it was believed that the Qin artisans had invented a form of chrome plating, a technology not rediscovered in the West for another 1900 years. This incredible preservation was hailed as a mark of a lost, high technology. However, the academic consensus on this has shifted. More recent research suggests the chromium may not have been an intentional anti-rust coating after all. Instead, it might be a contaminant from the lacquer used on the weapon shafts or from the specific chemical composition of the local soil in the pits. The debate continues to rage. Was it a stroke of accidental preservation or a mark of forgotten genius? For you, holding this gleaming, timeless blade, it feels like pure magic. Your job is to place these weapons into the hands of the soldiers. It's a strange and solemn task. You carefully slide the hilt of a sword into the waiting grip of a clay general. You place a heavy spear into the grasp of an infantryman. The most intricate work is with the crossbows are real, but the most important part, the trigger mechanism, is a sophisticated piece of bronze engineering. You watch as a master craftsman fits these triggers, marveling at the interlocking parts that allow for immense power and a smooth release. These were not simple weapons, they were precision instruments, the sniper rifles of their day. As you arm the silent soldiers, their character changes once again. Before they were lifelike statues, now they are warriors. The addition of the real, gleaming bronze lends them a deadly seriousness. The kneeling archer is no longer just a well-designed sculpture, he is a loaded weapon, waiting for a command. The tall general is no longer just an imposing figure, he is a commander, his hand resting on a sword that is ready to be drawn. You come across a little-known and rather curious find from the pits, small piles of stones. Not just any stones, but smooth, carefully selected river stones about the size of a chicken egg. It's believed these were ammunition for slings, a humble but effective weapon often used by auxiliary troops. The idea of these magnificent, artfully crafted soldiers standing next to a simple pile of rocks is a charming and realistic touch. It shows that the arming and realistic touch, from the high-tech crossbows to the most basic of projectile weapons. You finish your task and step back, looking at the ranks of now fully armed soldiers. The sun glints off 1,000 bronze spear tips, a forest of deadly light. This is not a memorial. This is not art for art's sake. This is a functional, ready-for-battle army, equipped with the best military technology of its time, designed to be perfectly preserved and ready for the Emperor's command the moment he awoke in the afterlife. Have just helped to hand them their swords. Among the thousands of soldiers you have worked on, there are some that are clearly different. They are set apart not just by their positions in the formation, but by their very design. These are the officers, the commanders, the generals of the clay army. And when you are tasked with helping to position one of them, the difference is palpable. The first thing you notice is the height. The generals are noticeably taller than the average soldier. While a regular infantryman might stand around 5 feet 9 inches, the generals loom over them, some reaching 6 feet 4 inches or more. In an age when the average height was much shorter than it is today, these figures would have been truly imposing giants. This wasn't just a stylistic choice, it was a clear visual indicator of rank and authority. Hierarchy was communicated through physical form. You help guide a general into his position at the head of a phalanx of infantry. His posture is different. He stands straight and proud, his hands often clasped before his stomach or one resting on the hilt of his long, chrome-tinged sword. He exudes an aura of calm, confident authority. He is not in the heat of battle, he is observing it, directing it, his mind engaged in strategy. But the most striking feature is his armor. It is far more elaborate and decorative than that of the common soldier. Instead of the simple, functional plates of the infantry, the general's armor is a work of art. It's covered in intricate, decorative tassels and ribbons, which would have been made of fine silk or leather. His chest plate is often a single large piece, adorned with geometric patterns. But the most distinctive feature is his headdress. While regular simple top knots, the generals wear elaborate caps, some shaped like a pheasant's tail, a clear and recognized symbol of high military rank. As you stand before this magnificent figure, you are responsible for making a final inspection. Your eyes are drawn to his face. The faces of the generals seem to have received special attention from the master sculptors. They are not the faces of young, anonymous recruits. They are the portraits of middle-aged, experienced men, their faces lined with the cares of command. They have strong jaws, thoughtful eyes, and often elaborate mustaches, or goatee with incredible care. You look closely at the face of the general before you. There's a quiet intensity in his clay eyes, a subtle furrow in his brow that suggests deep concentration. You can't help but wonder, was this face modeled on a real person? While it's unlikely every soldier was a portrait, it's a much more plausible theory for these high-ranking commanders. The emperor had a retinue of brilliant, loyal generals who helped him conquer the warring states. Men like Wang Jian and Meng Tian. Is it possible that the faces of these clay commanders are, in fact, the only surviving portraits of the real men who lead the Qin armies? This is one of the most tantalizing and fiercely debated questions surrounding the army. Without any other confirmed portraits from the era to compare them with, the identities of these Terrataka generals remain a compelling mystery. As you work, you overhear a hushed conversation between two older artisans. They are talking about a specific, very rare type of figure that has been completed, the cavalry officer. They describe a figure standing beside his sculpted horse, not riding it. This is a detail that speaks volumes about military etiquette of the time. A commander would not remain mounted in the presence of the emperor, his superior officer. By sculpting him standing beside his horse, the artisan showed his proper respect for the chain of command, even in the afterlife. It's a subtle but powerful piece of storytelling in clay. You finish your inspection of the general. He is perfect, a silent, towering monument to military power and authority. He is the brain of this clay army, the conduit for the emperor's will. Standing in his presence, you feel the full weight of the hierarchy that governs this place and the entire empire. From the lowest laborer to the convict, from the artisan to the foreman, from the soldier to the general, everyone has their place. And at the very pinnacle of it all is the one man for whom all this is being done, the emperor himself, a figure of unimaginable power, whom you have never seen but whose presence is felt in every lump of clay and every drop of paint. The general's stern, clay gaze seems to be a reflection of that ultimate authority, a silent reminder of who is truly in command. For months your world has been nothing but soldiers, standing infantry, kneeling archers, formidable generals, and the patient cavalrymen standing by their steeds. You have come to believe that this is the sole purpose of the project, to build a single, massive army to guard the emperor's tomb. But this project is a universe of its own, and you are about to discover it contains more than just warriors. One day, you and your father are summoned by Master Fei for a special assignment. You are not led towards the sprawling courtyards where the army is being assembled. Instead, you are taken to a smaller, more secluded workshop that you had never been allowed to enter before. The security here feels even tighter, the atmosphere even more secretive. Inside, the scene is startlingly different. There are no soldiers. Instead, the workshop is filled with figures of a completely different nature. In one corner, you see a group of men frozen in various poses of physical exertion. One is powerfully built, his muscles straining, clearly a strong man or an acrobat. Another is slender and lithe, balanced on one hand. They are entertainers, meant to amuse the emperor in his afterlife. In another part of the workshop, you see figures that are more sober and dignified. They are dressed not in armor, but in the long flowing robes of court officials. They hold bamboo slips or writing implements in their hands. These are the bureaucrats, the scribes, the administrators, a clay civil service created to run the government of the underworld. The emperor didn't just want an army to protect him, he wanted his entire imperial court, recreated in Terrataka, to continue its work. This discovery is a profound revelation. The scale of the emperor's ambition is even greater than you had imagined. He wasn't just building a guard for his tomb. He was building a complete, self-sufficient parallel world. This wasn't an acropolis, a city of the dead. It was an eternal empire. This is a reflection of a historical truth that broadens the story of the Tarataka army. The famous pit 1 contains the main infantry force, but other, smaller pits have been discovered nearby. Pit 2 contains cavalry and archers in more complex formations. Pit 3 appears to be the Haikum and post. But then, there are the other pits, often labeled with letters, like Pit K6, which contained the clay civil officials, and Pit K9001. Their centerpiece a massive bronze cauldron, or ding, weighing over 200 kilograms. You are here because of your and your father's skill with fine details. Your task is to work on a new set of figures, musicians. You are presented with a half-finished figure of a man sitting on a mat, his hands positioned as if playing a zither. Your job is to sculpt the instrument itself, a delicate, multi-stringed object that requires incredible precision. Your father is tasked with sculpting the hands and faces, capturing the focused, serene expressions of performers lost in their music. As you work on the delicate clay strings of the zither, you notice something remarkable about these non-military figures. They feel more individual, more human than the soldiers. The soldiers, for all their unique faces, share a common purpose and a rigid discipline in their postures. But these entertainers and officials are more relaxed, their poses more natural. The strong man's straining muscles, the official's thoughtful frown, the musician's calm focus, they are portraits of civilian life, a quiet counterpoint to the military might of the main army. A particularly strange and lesser-known discovery in these other pits was that of Tarataka figures of birds, cranes, swans, and geese accompanied by their Tarataka keepers. This suggests the emperor even wanted his imperial gardens and menagerie to follow him into the next life. The level of detail and planning is almost beyond comprehension. He was leaving nothing behind. Working in this secret workshop feels like being let into the inner circle of the project. The artisans here are the absolute masters of their craft. You watch a man sculpting the flowing robes of a government official, the clay falling in such realistic folds it looks like real fabric. The atmosphere is less like a factory and more like a true artist's studio. The pressure is still immense. But it's the pressure to create beauty, not just to meet a quota. You complete yours either and place it in the lap of the clay musician. It looks perfect. You can almost hear the faint, phantom notes hanging in the air. You look around at the silent acrobats, the thoughtful scribes, the patient musicians. You realize that the emperor's fear was not just of being unprotected in the afterlife. It was a fear of being alone. A fear of silence, and so he commanded his artisans to build him not just an army to guard against his enemies, but a court to rule over, and entertainers to fill the silence of eternity with their phantom music and ghostly performances. Just when you think you have seen the full extent of the emperor's ambition, a new rumor begins to circulate through the workshops, a whisper of a project so complex and so magnificent that it makes even the creation of the general seem routine. The rumor speaks of bronze, not just the bronze of weapons or small fittings, but bronze on an unprecedented scale. It speaks of a chariot. The project is being conducted in the utmost secrecy, in a heavily guarded compound separate from even the most specialized Tarataka workshops. Only the most elite master artisans, bronze smiths, whose families have guarded their techniques for generations, are permitted inside. You can only catch glimpses of the smoke from their forges and hear the distant, rhythmic ring of their hammers. Then, one day, the rumor becomes a reality. An order comes down for a team to be assembled, not for their skill in clay, but for their strength and steady hands. You and your father are chosen. Your task is to help transport the completed components of this secret project to a special assembly area. You are led to the bronze workshop, and the moment you step inside, you understand the secrecy. The air is thick with the metallic tang of molten metal and the sharp scent of casting wax. Intricate molds are scattered everywhere, but what draws your eye are the finished pieces, laid out carefully on wooden pallets. They are parts of a chariot, but a chariot unlike any you could have ever imagined. It is half the size of a real chariot, a meticulously crafted miniature, but every single component, down to the smallest nail and buckle, is cast in solid bronze. You see the wheels, their spokes thinner than your finger, yet perfectly formed. You see the body of the chariot, adorned with swirling, cloud-like patterns. You see the reins, not made of leather, but of fine, interlocking bronze chains, so delicate they seem impossible. Your first task is to help carry one of the horses. It takes 4 of you to lift it. The bronze is incredibly heavy, cool and smooth to the touch. The horse is a masterpiece of realism. Its muscles are tensed, its nostrils are flared, it seems to be in motion, its legs frozen in a graceful trot. It is adorned with a harness of gold and silver, the precious metals inlaid into the bronze with breathtaking skill. This is a true historical marvel. Archaeologists would one day unearth 2 of these bronze chariots from a pit near the emperor's mound. They are among the most intricate and best preserved bronze artifacts ever discovered from the ancient world. Chariot number 1, the lead chariot, is an open-air vehicle. Chariot number 2, which you are now seeing in its original state, is a closed carriage-like vehicle with windows that could be opened and closed, and it was likely intended to represent the personal transport for the emperor's soul. You and your team carefully transport the pieces, the 4 horses, the chariot body, the canopy, and the figure of the driver to a special, cordoned-off section. There, under the watchful eyes of the master bronze smiths, the final assembly begins. You watch, holding your breath, as the pieces are fitted together with a watchmaker's precision. The driver is a figure of incredible detail. He is a solid bronze casting, his face set in a look of serene concentration. He wears the robes and cap of a high-ranking imperial charioteer. His hands are outstretched, gripping the bronze reins that connect to the 4 horses. He is the very picture of control and expertise. One of the most mind-boggling and often overlooked details of this creation is the canopy. It is a huge, umbrella-like structure that covers the chariot, and it is cast as a single massive, yet incredibly thin piece of bronze. How the kin artisans manage to cast such a large, thin object without it cracking or warping during the cooling process is a feat of metallurgical engineering that still baffles experts. Some theories suggest they used a highly sophisticated multi-part mold and a carefully controlled, slow cooling process, a technique that was centuries ahead of its time. As the final piece is slotted into place, a collective gasp goes through the small, privileged audience of workers allowed to witness it. The completed chariot is a vision of impossible beauty and power. The 4 bronze horses seem to pull forward, their gold and silver harnesses glinting. The driver stands ready. The chariot itself seems to float, a perfect vehicle to carry a soul through the heavens. It is the single, most complex and valuable object you have ever seen, a culmination of all the skills and all the secrets of the Emperor's workshops. It is a jewel box of technology, a testament to the idea that for the first emperor, nothing was too difficult, nothing was too expensive in his quest to build a perfect, eternal world. As you stand in the presence of the magnificent bronze chariot, you feel a shift in the atmosphere of the entire compound. For months, the work has been driven by a sense of duty, of fear, of professional pride. But now, as the final pieces of this vast, secret world are being assembled, another feeling begins to surface, a palpable sense of the emperor's own personality, his obsessions, his desires. You are not just building for an abstract imperial command anymore, a very specific, very powerful, and very frightened man. You have never seen him. You likely never will. His imperial majesty is a remote, almost mythical figure, but his presence is everywhere. It's in the rigid standardization of the chariot axles. It's in the absolute demand for secrecy. And most of all, it's in the sheer, desperate ambition of this project. You look at the 10,000 clay soldiers, the civil servants, the musicians, and the bronze chariot, and you understand. This is all the product of a mind consumed by a single, all-powerful idea. The man who conquered all the known kingdoms of China, who standardized its laws and language, who built the Great Wall could not conquer his own mortality, and he refused to accept it. The driving force behind this entire universe of clay and bronze is the emperor's obsessive quest for immortality. This is a well-documented historical fact. In his later years, Qin Shi Huang became fixated on avoiding death. He sent expeditions down the coast, led by alchemists, to find the mythical islands of the immortals, like Ping Lai, where the elixir of life was said to grow. One such expedition, led by a man named Zhu Fu, set sail with hundreds of young men and women. Some legends say they settled in Japan. You hear stories about the emperor's state of mind from the guards and the higher-ranking administrators who have been to the capital. They speak in hushed tones of his paranoia. He sleeps in a different room of his vast palace, complex every night to avoid assassins. He has a network of tunnels and covered walkways built so that he can travel unseen. He avoids using the word death or die. In his presence, he surrounds himself with magicians and alchemists who promise him eternal life, feeding him potions made of mercury and other toxic substances that, ironically, were likely poisoning him and hastening his end. This frantic, desperate search for a chemical or spiritual fountain of youth is what makes the Mausoleum project so complex. It is not a traditional tomb. It is a backup plan, a plan B on a cosmic scale. If he should fail to achieve true physical immortality, he will have this perfect, parallel empire to rule over instead. The sheer detail of the project, the individual faces, the real weapons, the civil servants, the entertainers is a testament to his desire for a seamless transition. He doesn't want to be a ghost in a vague, shadowy underworld. He wants to continue his life, his rule, his routines, uninterrupted. The academic world has long debated the precise nature of the emperor's beliefs. Was he a true believer in the traditional afterlife, just on a grander scale? Or was his project a more radical, almost secular attempt to physically replicate his world, born from a deep-seated skepticism about what, if anything, came after death? The evidence suggests a man hedging his bets, pursuing every possible avenue magical and monumental to cheat his fate. You see this obsession reflected in the frantic pace of the work. As the years go by, the pressure increases. Quotas are raised. The bells that signal the start and end of the workday seem to come closer and closer together. The emperor is getting older. His patience is running out. The race against time is palpable. You feel it in the strained faces of the overseers and the weary bodies of the laborers. You are all caught in the gravitational pull of one man's terror of the void. You look at the face of a soldier you sculpted, his expression, calm and eternal. You created him to be immortal, to stand watch for 10,000 years. But the man for whom he was made is desperately, mortally afraid. This entire, magnificent, silent world, with its legions of soldiers and its bronze chariots, is not a monument to power, you realize. It's a monument to fear. The fear of the most powerful man in the world, who, in the end, was afraid of the same darkness that awaits everyone else. The whispers about the Emperor's obsession with immortality have always been present, but as the work on the Terataka army and the other pits nears its final stages, a new and more fantastic set of rumors begins to take hold. These are not about the clay figures you have spent years creating. They are about the Emperor's true resting place, the tomb mound itself, which looms in the distance like a man-made mountain. The old men, the ones who have been on this project the longest, speak of it in hushed, awe-filled tones. They say the army is just the outer guard. The real treasure, the real marvel, is what lies sealed beneath that mountain of earth. They say the Emperor is not just being buried, he is creating a miniature landscape of his entire empire inside his tomb. The most persistent and vivid of these stories is the legend of the Mercury Rivers. The elders whisper that within the central tomb chamber, a map of the Qin Empire has been laid out on the floor. And to represent the great rivers of China, like the Yangtze and the Yellow River, channels have been dug and filled with pure, shimmering mercury. A mechanism has been built, they say, to make the mercury flow, constantly circulating, mimicking the waterways of the world he conquered. The ceiling above is said to be a map of the heavens, with pearls and precious gems representing the sun, moon, and stars. You try to imagine it. A dark, cavernous space, silent save for the soft, mechanical sloshing of liquid metal, the ceiling glittering with a cold, eternal starlight, the air thick with the sweet, toxic scent of mercury. It's a vision of cosmic grandeur and deadly poison, a perfect metaphor for the Emperor's reign. This story sounds like the wildest fantasy, the kind of tall tale that weary workers tell each other to pass the time. But this legend is not just folklore. It is recorded in the writings of the great Han Dynasty historian, Sima Qian, who wrote his history after the emperor's death. He described the tomb in vivid detail, including the 100 rivers, the Yangtze and the Yellow River, and the Great Sea, all made of mercury and circulated by mechanical means. Historians treated this account with skepticism, assuming it was a symbolic exaggeration. But then came modern science. In the 1982, soil scientists began taking samples from the earth of the tomb mound. And they made a startling discovery. The soil samples from the area directly above the suspected location of the central chamber showed levels of mercury that were hundreds of times higher than the surrounding soil. The distribution of these mercury hotspots even seemed to roughly match the layout of the major rivers in the region. The legend, it seems, might be true. This scientific evidence has made the prospect of ever excavating the central tomb mound both more tantalizing and far more dangerous. The risk of unleashing a toxic cloud of mercury vapor is one of the main reasons the Chinese government has, to this day, forbidden the excavation of the emperor's final resting place. The debate rages on in the archaeological community. Is it worth the risk? What technologies would be needed to safely enter such a space? For you, the story of the Mercury Rivers adds the final, terrifying piece to the puzzle of the emperor's mind. He is not just creating a world, he is recreating a cosmos. He is building his own private universe with its own heaven and its own earth, where he will be the supreme, immortal ruler. The sheer hubris of it is almost impossible to comprehend. To not only replicate your empire, but to replicate the very rivers and stars, and to make them flow and shine for eternity. It's the act of a man who sees himself not just as an emperor, but as a god. You look up from your work and gaze at the distant, silent shape of the tomb mound. It no longer looks like a simple hill of earth. It looks like a sleeping volcano, its heart filled with a circulating, poisonous, liquid metal. The Tarataka army, this vast and incredible project that has consumed years of your life, is merely the gatekeeper to an even greater, more dangerous, and more magnificent secret. And it is a secret that is meant to be kept forever. The day finally comes. After years of shaping, firing, painting, and arming, the silent legions are ready. The order is given to begin the final phase, the entombment. The soldiers are not to be buried haphazardly. They are to be placed in their final resting places, vast underground trenches, arranged in precise, irreversible battle formation. The pits themselves are a marvel of engineering. You have seen them being dug over the years, a colossal undertaking that involved moving millions of tons of earth. Now you walk down a wide, sloping ramp into the mouth of the largest pit, which will one day be known as Pit First. The scale of the subterranean space is breathtaking. It's like standing inside a hollowed-out canyon. The floor is paved with sturdy gray bricks, and the walls are made of massive rammed earth partitions, creating long, parallel corridors. Your role in this final act is one of pure, careful manpower. You are part of a large team responsible for lowering the completed soldiers into the pit and moving them to their designated positions. It is the most nerve-wracking work you have ever done. The figures are heavy, awkward, and now, after all the work of painting and arming, they are priceless. A complex system of ropes and wooden scaffolding has been erected to lower the figures down the steep ramps. You and a dozen other men strain at the ropes, your muscles burning, as a tall general is slowly, carefully lowered into the darkness. The foreman barks orders, his voice tight with tension. Every movement is slow, deliberate. A single mistake, a frayed rope or a misplaced step, would be a catastrophe. Once a soldier is on the floor of the pit, it must be moved into its exact position. You use heavy wood on levers and rollers to inch the figures across the brick-paved floor. The arrangement is not random. It is a precise and functional battle formation, a textbook example of military strategy. The vanguard of kneeling and standing archers is at the front. Behind them is the main force, a massive phalanx of armored infantrymen, their spears and halberds held at the ready. There are chariots, each drawn by 4 horses, providing support and mobility. Each of the thousands of soldiers has a specific, pre-assigned spot in the formation. The officers and generals are placed at strategic command points. The entire layout is a snapshot of the Qin army on the march, a terrifyingly efficient and disciplined military machine. The precision of the layout has led some military historians to suggest that the formation itself is a kind of historical document, a perfect illustration of the tactics that allowed the Qin to conquer all of China. As you help to position an infantryman in the heart of the formation, you are surrounded by the silent faces of the army. It's an eerie, profound experience. Down here in the cool, subterranean twilight, they seem more alive than ever. Their painted faces are vibrant, their bronze weapons glint in the torchlight. You are standing in the midst of a silent, waiting army, and the silence is humming with potential energy. You see a fascinating, small detail that speaks to the meticulous planning. In the areas where the chariots are placed, the brick floor is not flat. It has 2 shallow, parallel grooves, perfectly spaced to accommodate the wheels of the chariot. This wasn't just for positioning, it was to keep the chariot stable and secure for all time. Nothing was left to chance. The work is slow and exhausting. Day after day, you descend into the pits and add more soldiers to the ranks. The silent army grows, filling the vast underground corridors. There is a sense of finality to the work that is both satisfying and deeply sad. You see faces you sculpted, soldiers you helped to assemble, being sealed away in the earth, never to be seen again by human eyes. You are burying your own life's work. This part of the process, the careful, ritualistic arrangement of grave goods, is a practice as old as civilization itself. But the scale of this is something new. The question of whether the common workers who toiled on this project truly believed in its spiritual necessity, or simply saw it as a monumental task performed under duress, is a complex one. For you, the beliefs are secondary to the reality of the work. You are a craftsman, and this is the final, solemn installation of your creation. You are helping to set the stage for an eternal play, placing the actors in their positions before the curtain falls for good. The last soldier is in place. The final chariot has been settled into its grooved tracks. You stand at the edge of the pit and look down one last time at the breathtaking sight. A complete, perfect army, arrayed in the silent darkness, ready for a war that will never come. The air in the pit is cool and still, heavy with the scent of earth, lacquer, and bronze. It feels like a sacred space, a world holding its breath. Now, the final act of concealment begins. The pits were not designed to be simply filled with dirt. They were constructed as massive subterranean wooden buildings. Your new task is to help place the roof. Enormous, sturdy wooden pillars have been erected along the rammed earth walls of the corridors. Now you and hundreds of other workers begin the heavy labor of hauling and lifting massive timber beams, some as thick as your body, to lay across the tops of these pillars. It's dangerous, difficult work, and positioning them high above the fragile Terataka army requires immense care and coordination. Once this primary framework is in place, a dense layer of woven reed mats is laid over the beams. The mats are thick and durable, designed to support the immense weight of what will come next. You look down through the gaps in the timber roof at the soldiers below. They are now cast in a deep, striped shadow, their forms fading into the gloom. It is your last glimpse of them. After the mats are in place, the true ceiling begins. A thick, protective layer of a special clay mixture, similar to the material used for the pottery itself, is plastered over the mats, creating a waterproof barrier. This was a critical step in the preservation of the army. This impermeable membrane would protect the contents of the pits from water damage for centuries. The sophistication of this waterproofing technique is another testament to the advanced engineering knowledge. Finally, the moment arrives to bury it all. Carts begin to arrive, laden with the earth that was excavated from the pits years ago. An endless line of laborers begins the monumental task of covering the roof, pouring basket after basket after basket of soil onto the structure. The sound is a soft, steady rain of dirt, a sound of finality. You stand and watch as the earth slowly rises, first covering the roof, then mounting higher and higher until any sign of the vast wooden structure beneath is gone. You are helping to erase your own work from the face of the earth, burying it under tons of soil, returning it to the darkness from which its clay first came. As you work, a chilling rumor spreads among the laborers. It's a story that will be recorded by the historian C. McKeon and will haunt the legacy of the first emperor forever. The rumor says that once the tomb and all its treasures were in place, the craftsmen and artisans who built it, the ones who knew its secrets, the layout of its chambers, and the location of its traps were themselves sealed inside. After the burial, the historian would write, the middle gate was shut, and the outer gate was lowered, imprisoning all the artisans and laborers so that no one came out. The historical accuracy of this claim is hotly debated. Was it a literal mass burial of all the workers, or was it a dramatic exaggeration, perhaps referring only to a few key engineers of the central tomb? No mass graves of artisans have been found to conclusively prove the story. But whether it is true or not, the fear it generates is real. You look at the faces of your fellow workers. The shared pride of creation is now replaced by a shared, gnawing anxiety. Are you part of what is being finished? You look towards the great tomb mound of the emperor, and then back at the flattened, anonymous earth where the army now sleeps. The secrets are being buried one by one. The secret of the army's existence, the secret of the Mercury rivers, and perhaps the final secret will be what happened to the men who knew all the others. The project is ending and the silence it demands is becoming absolute. The fear of being sealed in the tomb with the emperor's secrets hangs heavy in the air for weeks. Every work eyes the guards with suspicion. Every new order causes a fresh wave of anxiety. But the horrific, widespread slaughter you feared does not happen. Perhaps the rumor was just a story, or perhaps it applied only to the unlucky few who worked on the innermost chambers of the tomb itself. For you and the thousands of artisans who built the Terrataka army, the end is more mundane, in its own way, just as final. The work is done. The pits are sealed. The great temporary city of workshops and kilns that has been your world for years begins to be dismantled. The dragon kilns are extinguished, their fiery mouths scold for the first time in a generation. The barracks are torn down. The tools are packed away. The rhythm of your life, which has been dictated by the bell and the overseer's shout, dissolves into an unstructured, uncertain quiet. You and your father, along with the other surviving artisans, are formally released from your service. There is no grand ceremony, no reward for your years of labor, other than the simple fact that you are allowed to leave. You are given a small stipend of grain, enough for the journey home, and pointed back towards the roads you traveled so long ago. The journey back is a strange mirror image of your arrival. The roads are no longer teeming with a flood of humanity flowing towards the capital. The flow has reversed, and it is now a scattered trickle of men heading out towards the distant provinces, their faces etched with the years of hard labor, their bodies older and more tired. As you travel, you can feel that the empire itself is on shaky ground. The first emperor, the man whose will had driven everything, is dead. He died on one of his tours of the eastern provinces, still searching for the elixir of life. His death was kept secret for a time, his advisors reportedly loading his carriage with salted fish to mask the smell of his decomposing body, as they rushed back to the capital to secure power. It's a bizarre and ignominious end for a man who craved immortality. His death has left a power vacuum, and the empire he forged with such iron will is already beginning to crack. His chosen heir was forced into suicide by a palace conspiracy, and his weak, pliable younger son has been placed on the throne. Rebellions are simmering. The immense tax burden and the relentless demand for labor for projects like the one you just completed have pushed the people to their breaking point. The peace you knew, that heavy, enforced peace, is fraying. The entire time you are traveling, you and your father never speak of what you built. The oath of silence is still ingrained in you. It is a secret you will carry to your grave. The knowledge of the 10,000 silent soldiers, the painted acrobats, the bronze chariot, and the mercury rivers is locked away inside you. This absolute secrecy is the primary reason why this wonder of the world remained completely unknown for over 2 millennia. There were no written records of its construction, save for the vague descriptions of the tomb by Sima Qian. The project was so successful in its secrecy that, after the dynasty's collapse, it was utterly completely forgotten by history. The collective memory of the 700,000 people who built it was simply erased. You finally arrive back at your village. It is smaller than you remember, the people older. Your mother weeps when she sees you, her hands tracing the new lines on your face. You are no longer the boy who left. You are a man hardened by years of labor, haunted by a secret you can never share. You return to the potter's wheel. You take a lump of familiar, local clay and begin to shape it. Your hands, which have sculpted the faces of generals and the armor of imperial guards, now return to the simple, humble work of making a bowl. And as the wheel turns, the vast, secret world you left behind begins to feel like a dream. Did it really happen? Did you really stand in a pit filled with an army of ghosts, in the chaos of the collapsing dynasty? As rebellions turn into open warfare, the story seems too fantastical to be real. The secret sleeps, not only under the earth of Shaanxi province, but deep within your own mind, waiting for a time when the world might be ready to rediscover it. The years pass. The great and terrible Qin dynasty, which was supposed to last for 10,000 generations, collapses in on itself after only 15 years. The memory of the first emperor becomes a cautionary tale, a story of tyranny and obsession. The capital's Yanyang is sacked by rebels. The palaces are burned. In the chaos, what little official documentation might have existed about the mausoleum project is likely lost forever. You live out your life as a simple potter. You marry, have children, and then grandchildren. You teach them how to work the clay, just as your father taught you. But you never speak of the army. The secret remains locked away. Sometimes, late at night, when you are alone with your thoughts, you see the faces of the soldiers in your mind. You wonder if they are still standing there. In the silent darkness, their paint slowly flaking, their bronze weapons still gleaming. The thought is a strange comfort, a private knowledge that you were part of something immense and eternal. But it is a knowledge that dies with you, and with your death, and the death of all the other artisans who shared the secret. The story of the Terataka army vanishes from human memory. The silence becomes complete. The world moves on. Dynasties rise and fall. Generations are born and die on the land above the sleeping army. The tomb mound of the first emperor is known, a landmark on the plains, but its true contents are the stuff of legend and fantasy. No one knows about the soldiers beneath their feet. They have become less than a rumor. They are nothing. And now, let us jump forward in time. More than 2,000 years. The world is a place you would not recognize. The year is 1974th. You are no longer an artisan. You are a farmer, a man named Yang Zhifei. Your family has lived on this patch of land for as long as anyone can remember, a piece of earth just a short distance from the great tomb mound of the old emperor. It is a time of drought. The persimmon trees are withered, and the wells are running low, in a spot that you hope will yield more water. The work is hard. The sun is hot. You break the dry, cracked earth with hand tools, digging deeper and deeper. Shovel by shovel, you lift the sandy lowest soil, the same soil that your ancestor, the artisan, once shaped with his hands. You dig 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet down, and then your shovel strikes something hard. It's not a rock. The sound is different. It's a dull, hollow thud. Annoyed at the obstruction, you and your brothers work to clear the dirt around it. You think perhaps you've hit an old kiln or a piece of a forgotten tomb. And then you see it. Peeking out of the dirt is a shape, a rounded form made of reddish-brown pottery. As you clear more soil, the shape becomes clearer. It looks like the top of a head. You keep digging, your frustration now mixed with a burgeoning curiosity. You uncover the shoulders, the torso, the armored chest of a man. A life-sized man, made of clay, his face impassive, his gaze fixed on the far wall of the well. He looks ancient, but he is perfectly intact. You have no idea what you have found. You think it might be a statue of a temple guardian, or perhaps an image of a local god. One of the more amusing and little-known initial reactions was one of superstitious fear. Some of the villagers were worried they had disturbed a spirit, an occupant of the underworld, and that it would bring them bad luck. One of your brothers, in a moment of practicality, even broke off the head and took it home to use as a bucket, before realizing it was something more significant. Word of your strange discovery slowly makes its way to the local cultural authorities. An archaeologist is sent to investigate. When he arrives and peers down into your half-finished well, he can barely believe his eyes. He knows the history of the first emperor, and he knows, with a jolt of electrifying certainty, that you have not just found a statue. You have stumbled upon a secret that has been kept for 20 centuries. You, the farmer, have done what no emperor or historian could do. You have found the silent army. The well you were digging was not just a well. It was a key turned in a lock that had been sealed for millennia. And with that turn, the dream of the first emperor and the life's work of the young artisan you once were is about to be woken from its long sleep and brought out into the light of a new world. And so, the story comes to a gentle close. The artisan sleeps, his secret finally shared with a world he could never have imagined. The farmer's discovery fades into the soft pages of history. And you can let it all go now. Let the images of the silent soldiers, the glint of bronze, the dusty workshops, just drift away. Like soft gray clouds across a quiet evening sky, there is nothing left to figure out, nothing more to see. Your mind can be as still and as silent as the pits themselves before they were found. A quiet, peaceful darkness, a safe and comfortable space. Feel the weight of your body. A pleasant, heavy feeling sinking gently into the surface beneath you. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath. In, a soft and steady wave, carrying you further and further away from the waking world. Each breath is a step deeper into rest. Each exhalation, a release of all that is left of the day. The story is over, but the feeling of peace remains. A soft blanket of quiet, wrapped gently around you. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are drifting now, into the deep, restorative quiet of your own well-deserved sleep. There is only rest here, only the gentle, quiet dark. The end of the article. If you still can't sleep, or other videos on my channel can help you fall asleep, good night.